Thank you for joining Brick Wall Stories. Today we have Leah Dubinsky with us. She's a mother, public educator for over 25 years. Thank you, Leah, for being here.
For having me.
So the first question, I'd like to start from the very beginning. What is the first memory as a little girl?
Oh, um, I think it's kind of a funny memory. I remember, um, wasn't the very first house I lived in, but probably the first one I can remember. We were in Cleveland, Ohio, and um, there were a bunch of families on the street. And one of my early memories, I used to play with these two boys across the street, and they had a big German Shepherd, and we didn't have a dog, so I liked to go to their house and play. And they were bigger boys, so they were really exciting. And I had these purple, I don't know if they were wool, but they were definitely like thick knit purple knee socks. And we were sitting on their porch playing. And I remember looking down at my socks and realizing there were ants crawling all through my socks.
Oh, wow.
And like freaking out. And these boys were like, help her, help her. And they're like flinging my shoes and the socks all over the lawn and then spraying my legs with the hose in the garden. So that was one of my first memories from childhood.
How long you've lived in Ohio for quite some time?
Um, I think we only lived there for 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years. We moved there when I was a toddler. I was born in New York and Long Island, and my dad took a job at Johnson and Johnson, and so we lived there. I went to kindergarten and first grade there. My sister was born there, and then we moved to California.
Nice. Good story. What, who or what event influenced you the most?
Um, ever?
Maybe let's start when you were young.
Um, so, um, my dad has a first cousin, Lenore, and um, Lenore had an impression on me very early. She was a very strong, smart, successful woman. She was an attorney. Um, and she was just like no nonsense. She didn't take shit from anybody. You know, when we would meet her, when we would go to New York and go out to dinner, like she just ran the show wherever she went. And I thought it was really funny and fun to be around her. And I wanted to be like that. I just remember I wanted to be a lawyer for a really long time because to me, a lawyer was what Lenore was. Um, so she had a pretty strong influence on me, I think, growing up and thinking I wanted to be a lawyer for a really long time. Yeah.
Any particular experience or just interaction with her, those visits to New York?
Yeah, I just kind of seeing how she navigated the world. She was a boss all the time, you know, and she did what she wanted to do, and she, some things about her, she was the president of the Women's Bar Association for trial lawyers in New York for a very long time. And then she became the first female president of the General New York Bar Association.
Wow.
So, she's no nonsense. I don't see her that frequently now, but she was just out for my daughter's bat mitzvah. And she's still like, I was setting up stuff for the party, and she's sitting there going, how old are you? What are you, a horse? Why aren't you paying someone to do this? You should be getting ready. And she was just like, she's very much like, live your life, enjoy it. Don't let anybody push you around, So I think my grandmother was like that a lot too. But I feel like watching Lenore was how I kind of aspired to be someone like that.
Did you have a dream, or did you, maybe not a dream, was it a desire to be a lawyer? Uh, just follow Lenore footsteps for a long time, or
Yeah,
it was
I
just a
mean,
short until
when you grow up in a Jewish family, like there's a few options, and lawyer is one of them, right? And so,
there are only two, lawyer and a
right,
doctor, as far as a
exactly,
joke goes.
exactly. If you're a failure, you can be an accountant. So I, my family was very happy to encourage that goal, but um, and really right up until the end of high school, I wasn't very studious. I did fine, and I got better grades the older that I was. Um, but because government and econ were, um, shared during your senior year, I thought that economics was maybe a major I would want because it was paired with government in my K-12 experience. And that sounded like law to me. And I knew I didn't want to do law enforcement and do like legal police type law. So I applied for college with economics as my um, major. And then I actually took economics the second half of my senior year and hated it.
Uh-huh.
So, and I had kind of simultaneously been taking physiology and physics and liked those way more and decided I wanted to do something in the sciences. Um, so that's kind of how the path changed. And I had a close friend whose brother dropped out of law school and hated it. And so, and that I was hearing that story more and more. So,
Were there any a lot of lawyers in the family aside from Lenore, or was
yeah.
it?
So my aunt eventually became a lawyer. While I was in high school and college, is I think when she was finishing law school. Um, and then a bunch of other cousins who I didn't have as much contact with were lawyers. Um, one is who started his career working for Lenore. He's now very, very successful. He basically puts all these crooked doctors behind bars and they lose their medical license in New York. So there are a bunch of lawyers in the family, but she was, kind of the first and the one I was close with first, and then my aunt after that. Um, yeah, I just kind of pivoted. It wasn't as interesting to me the older I got.
I picture her Judge Judy for some reason. Lenore, so New Yorker, tough talking New Yorker.
I can show
That
you a picture later. She does not
oh,
look like Judge Judy.
she does, but just the demeanor, I think,
Personality, yeah.
personality wise, yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
personality. Going back, would you want to be? Do you think you'll make a good lawyer? Would you go back to law school, perhaps?
So
Knowing,
now,
yeah, no.
now that I know myself as an adult, I think lawyers have to be extremely impeccable with their word choice. Um, you have to um, pander to judges, and really, whether you like them or not, you have to like have this relationship. So I think there are some parts of being an attorney, especially a courtroom attorney, that are not my top skills. I kind of like to say it how it is. And Lenore actually was her major in college was theater. So I
Oh,
think there's an element of,
performance
an
certainly in the
act.
courtroom. Yeah,
Yes. So, and I'm not really a performer.
right.
Yeah.
Anything that's little girl from Ohio. Anything left from Lenore? What's in what regard are you most like her? You know, you try to emulate her, be like her a little bit.
Um, I think just being able to do really hard things and, um, manage a lot of things that require resilience and, not being scared of pushback and just being very steadfast about, when something's right, doing what's right, even if it's unpopular.
Was it natural for you, or you grew into that abilities? Were you somewhere this little girl?
Yeah, I think I was. I actually found, so two things. My dad found, so when my aunt got married in 1984, I was 5 and it was June and, really hot in New York City and humid. And my one of my grandmother's favorite things to do was buy me and my sister matching outfits. And her girlfriend owned this dress shop and would go to Paris to buy. It was a really wild store. Um, and so, she would always tell her friend, if you see anything cute for the girls, pick it up for us. So, my mom had bought us, like summer dressy dresses for this wedding. And we didn't go to the whole wedding. We were just invited for like dessert time. But I had pictured myself in this dress my mom had bought. And when we got to New York for the wedding, my grandmother was like, "Oh, look what I bought for Nancy's wedding." And my grandmother famously loves Argyle. And it was like a crew neck sweatshirt that had sequin Argyle pattern on the front with
Interesting.
a ruffle skirt. And then she got us matching white tights and black patent leather Mary Janes in June.
In
And
New York,
yes.
humidity.
And mine was black on top with a red ruffle, and my sister's was red on top with a black ruffle. And I mean, they were cute dresses, but I was incensed, A, that I had to wear like long sleeves sweatshirt material in the heat, and B, that I didn't get to wear the dress that I thought I was wearing. So my dad was cleaning out his drawers and he found a letter I wrote to my grandmother when I was 5,
Wow.
basically telling her, "I am so angry at you that you made me wear this dress when it was too hot." And like at 5,
At
I
five
wrote
years
this
old.
crazy letter to my grandmother. And and my dad had written a letter. Oh, we found it in my grandmother's apartment when we cleaned out
Oh,
her apartment.
wow.
And my dad enclosed my letter in a letter to her saying, "Ma, you really got to talk to her and apologize. Like, I'm afraid she's hanging on to this and is going to be mad at you the next time she sees you." And, um, so there was that. And then we found some other thing. I think it was like when you sign your kid up for camp, it was either a sign up for camp or like the teacher sent home a form, tell me about your child. And I remember seeing in a couple places, my dad would always write that I was assertive.
Yes, sir.
And I was like, oh. And I remember hearing him say it about me, but I was too young to know what it meant. And then I saw later, I was like, oh, yes, he did
Your
use,
assertive was a quality since you were 5, 6 years old.
yeah, yeah. So,
And you still are?
oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, I have learned to practice softening, but it is definitely out the gate my first tendency. Like just today I was editing. Tomorrow I'm having a meeting with my 5 new teachers that I hired. And one teacher who was hired a couple years ago made a list of like all the shit we wish we knew. And so I've been using that and input from other teachers to like help me welcome new staff and give them the stuff they need to know right away. And and I've been adding to it, and she was commenting, consider saying this instead. I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
oh yeah, there's a lot of Leah in that first comment. I should turn the
It's good to
volume.
have somebody who has, who has guts to say, to be there for you,
Yeah.
and
Oh
maybe
yeah.
just soften it up a little bit.
Yeah. No, I can take feedback, but it's
If it's,
definitely like
constructive criticism.
my first my first tendency is to be pretty direct.
Good. Teaching. Did you come in teaching intentionally, or was it by happenstance? You went to major in science, right? Or
Yeah, so it's it's so weird that it didn't occur to me earlier. But I think what it is, I mean, from a very young age, I was a babysitter, I was a camp counselor, I was a camp director when I was 19. I mean, I remember
okay.
parents picking their kids up and realizing I was only 19 and I was in charge of the whole camp and going, what, what?
Wow.
Um, so I I got along with kids and I got along with the tough kids that other people couldn't handle from a young age. And my sister struggled a lot. She didn't really have wild behavior, but she struggled a lot. And so I think I just kind of had an eye and an empathy for kids who were a little different because of that. And um, I mean, the first time I ever really considered it, I was in school for biology at UC Santa Cruz, and I took a diversity and education class.
Hmm.
And it was just all about the history of schools in the United States. And like, there's also the history of rights in the United States and how those things evolved together, not always at the same pace, and not always at the same pace depending on where you were sitting in the country, right? And so um they really asked us to reflect on our own high school experience in that class. And it just suddenly opened my eyes because I grew up in San Rafael in Marin County, and um, went to a high school where it was almost all white kids. And, I mean, I had a few experiences going to college, where I had never thought about that. And, my college roommate that I lived with for 3 years was from Compton. And like we sat on our beds in our dorm together looking at each other's yearbooks, and she's like, I have never seen so many white people in my life.
And
I was like, I have
different
some
experiences.
brown people in my life. And she had never, at least to her knowledge, she had never met a Jewish person before. And we spoke on the phone before we ended up in the same dorm room together. And my name was Leah Kramer, and she thought I was going to be a black girl before we moved in together. And like her family, they're like, oh, Kramer, sí, negrita, negrita. Like they were so certain. I was like, Compton is in LA. There are lots of Jews in LA. And she was like, not where I live. And I was like, oh, you seen the big hospital with the big Star of David? But so I was in this class, and also at the same time, my sister was dropping out of high school.
Mm.
And so, like, I just had this, like, really sort of critical lens about public schools and who were they serving and who were they not serving. And this class, just the books we read and the professor that I had made me think about it. And so then I did an internship um, where pretty much everyone else who was in the internship was an education minor and was planning to be a teacher.
Mm.
And it was just helping in local high schools. And I helped in the science classroom and wasn't like a remarkable teacher or anything like that. But I remember the kids and I remember, having relationships with some of the kids and this girl confiding in me about her eating disorder and helping her find the counselor and, um, different things like that. And I mean, it really, this professor and I ended up having a relationship and she kept pulling me into, we're doing a new internship. Why don't you come here? And then I was driving to San Jose for a different internship at a different school in San Jose. Um, and I still kept finishing the biology program thinking I was going to be like a nurse practitioner. So still in a helping career, but something more science based. And I applied to science, to nursing programs and teacher programs. And I think it really just came down to, at the time, I was substitute teaching for income in San Francisco and all throughout Marin after I graduated. And I think really it was that the good nurse practitioner program was at USF, and it was going to cost so much more to pay
Mm.
for USF. I was like, you know what? I'm going to try getting my teaching credential and see how it goes. And I went to SF State, and it just like I was good at it. It's a grind, and you work really hard and you don't get paid very much, and you know but I could do it really well. And the kids, like, I worked with a really strong science department in my first job, and so I learned from some good people, and it just stuck. I think Dennis always wishes that I was a nurse practitioner.
Well, why is that?
Well, because I'd be making more money. I think he thinks I'd be doing like the 3 12-hour shifts instead of, so that I could be home more. Um, I don't know. And I think he thinks it's more interesting to hear about what happens if you're a nurse than what happens if you're at a school. So, um, and I think he thinks I'd be less personally invested. Like there's just a lot in my head, a lot when I come home from work. And it's hard to like detach and then just be mom again and
Is it
wife.
possible for a good teacher not to be personally invested? I think it's a calling to be a teacher and a doctor, two professions
Yeah.
that I believe it could. Do you agree? Is it possible not to carry it on with you home or outside the schoolyard, so
Yeah.
to
I
speak?
mean, I think there are people who um probably have better boundaries than I do. Um and there are people who are just better switching, you know, back and forth between, different zones of their lives. Um I think that anyone who's a good teacher has to love kids first. like, especially being a science teacher, I worked with a lot of scientists who love science, but I don't think they love kids. And they just wanted to inspire children to love science as much as they do. And I'm like, it's not how it works. Like, you have to inspire kids to like love what you're going to say, regardless of what you're going to say, to be like hanging on the edge of your seat. What am I doing in this class today? And it has to be exciting, and they have to know that you care about them. And then the rest is easy, as long as you know your content. So it's I don't know, what I look for now that I'm hiring teachers, I look for people who love kids and who can take feedback, because I feel like you can teach people how to do the job better as long as they care a lot. And I have a sticker on my other mug that says "Work hard and be nice," and I'm like, those are the two most important things. Like, don't be lazy, work hard, and be nice. Don't be a jerk. And then you can probably work here for a really long time as long as you work hard and be nice. So,
Is there a way to teach teachers who want to come here for a 2 month vacation and maybe great scientists or great in math, but is it possible to teach the teacher to love the kids if they don't, or entice with something else than 2 month vacation?
yeah, I mean, I think you have to have that empathy and that like desire to connect. And so if you don't, I don't think you're going to be a good teacher. You have to want to connect with people. Um, yeah, I don't know. And it's weird. I mean, like, I've known introverts who are good teachers. So
Introverts, interesting.
it's not an extrovert thing. I think there are a lot of extroverted teachers, but I think you just have to like be interested in the kids. And if you're not, then you probably shouldn't be working in a school.
Well, perhaps those introverts can relate to the introverted kids who
Hmm.
could be brilliant in math or English or science, but very introverted, and they kind of keep it to themselves and very
Hmm.
shy in the classrooms. And
Yeah.
interesting. How do you come to that realization? You got to love the kids. I mean, you probably had it from the beginning, but did you have mentors that taught you something in the classroom? What did you learn from them?
So, I mean, my first few years, I learned how to work smarter and how to get what you needed from kids to be able to give a meaningful grade, but not overdo it so much that it was A, unmanageable for the kids, but B, unmanageable for you to actually give meaningful feedback on things. Um, but I think that so I was an avid teacher on top of being a science teacher. And avid is all about helping kids go to college who would be the first in their family to go to college. So, um, in that program, you're just really invested in helping people see and meet their potential that they haven't achieved yet. So you just kind of have to, like, even when a kid has totally pissed you off and missed every deadline and you've given them so much help, you just have to like continue to be their cheerleader and like tell them, I know you can do it, you're gonna do it, and just keep like not taking failure as an answer from them. Um, and then so I that experience I think taught me a lot about like unlocking potential in kids and like helping them get motivated. Um, and I remember even in that first job, there was a woman who I worked with. she was actually who recruited me to become an avid teacher. And she was thorny. Like, she didn't get along with a lot of people on staff. I wasn't sure she liked me for a while. And I remember I worked at that school for 4 years, and I remember she was like, "You're going to be a principal." And
Who told you that?
yeah, she told me
Oh,
that, and I was like 27 years old.
wow.
And she said that to me, and I was like, "No." And she's like, "You're definitely going to be a principal. I know it." And I was like, because I hated the principal we worked for at the time, and I was like, "I don't want to be anything like that guy." Like, no way. But she saw something in me. And then later, when I worked at Doherty Valley High School, somebody there told me to apply to an admin program. Um, and that principal, the woman who opened Doherty Valley High School, like, she was cutthroat, and she had really lofty goals for that school. And she taught me how to fire people. That was the first place I was an assistant principal after I taught there for a while. And she really, like, she there was a whole research. I don't remember if it was a book, um, but she was the first person that talked about this concept of islands of excellence in a sea of mediocrity.
Mm.
And she was like, "We're not going to be mediocre here. Like, these kids will work so hard, and there is no reason for us to be mediocre at this school." She's like, "Not the teaching, not the achievement. Like, this is a school for excellence." And she, and it was painful for some people. Like, it was really, I mean, I learned how to work so smart as a teacher and as a vice principal working for her. Um, and, and it's this whole, I mean, first of all, I really believe that honest is kind. And so I just kind of learned how to have conversations with people who I thought shouldn't be teaching anymore. Because when they're tenured, you have to be really careful and calculating. Um, but to just, like, help people realize, like, do you feel successful in this position? Are is this profession bringing you what you hoped it would, satisfaction wise? And to try and, like, get people to be reflective about their own path. Um, but at first it was like this vendetta revenge feeling because, like, here I am. You kind of case manage for students when you're an avid teacher. And so, like, you're like school mom for 25 kids or 30 kids. And so what their grades are in all these classes. At least their version of how this conversation went when they asked for help with this and that. And you're like, these are my colleagues that talk to you this way. Like, you just can't believe it. And so it was like, how are we gonna get these kids where they need to be despite these shitty teachers they have to deal with? Um, so I think those experiences just made me really care about what I was doing in my own classroom, and then also, now really care about making sure, if I know someone shouldn't be around kids, to make them really, really uncomfortable so that they leave.
Were there any funny interactions with kids where you could hardly remain composed, but you had to be a teacher or vice principal? And I'm sure there are kids who you remember and stuck with you in what they could be mentors as well. What you learn from them? I think here got to be lots of funny stories as well.
Oh, there's a million of them. I remember, so at Doherty, the science classrooms was a classroom and then a prep room and then the next classroom, and we would share a door to the prep space. And so, um, it was one period I was teaching, and the girl next door had her prep, and I knew she was working in the prep room. And I stuck my head in there to ask her a question, and my back was to the class. And this one boy, and I was like 27, 28 years old, and this is probably a sophomore. He yells out, "Nice ass, Dubinsky," because
Oh,
I was like leaned over, and I turned around. And I was like in the hall, and it was like, I mean, it's just teenagers and their frontal lobes and their boundaries. Like, he knew he had a relationship with me, but he just couldn't help himself and took it way too far. And I took him in the hallway and I said, "We do not have a nice ass relationship." And I said, "That is not how we talk to each other." I said, "I'm your teacher and you are my student." I said, "I don't care what you think of my ass. You don't say another word about it in this classroom." I said, "Otherwise, I'm sending you to the office. You're going there for sexual harassment." And he was like, just like totally stunned. And, there was this boy, I had all these jars of preserved specimens in my cabinet. And this one boy, he was one of my avid students. Um, and he would fall asleep. If it was football season, he would fall asleep in my class all the time. So I had this giant tarantula specimen in a jar. And so while he was sleeping, I very quietly put it on the table in front of him and kept teaching. And he woke up and like screamed like a little girl in front of his whole class. Like, I've got a
in
whole
front of the whole classroom?
office. I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
"You better stay awake or there's going to be a special surprise waiting for you when you wake up."
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And there's one boy that he was the quarterback, and the football coach would come to my room on Fridays because if you don't have a C, you can't play, right? And there were many Friday mornings that he did not have a C. And I'd kick the football coach out. I was like, "Get out of here. You've already passed high school biology." I was like, "He needs to pass it." I was like, "Why are you coming here?" And he would get really mad at me, but I was like, "Look, you know what you have to do, but I'm not giving out grids. You have to do the work, or you need to make corrections to your test that you didn't do well at, whatever it was." I was like, "I'm not just gonna put your grade up because I like you and want to see you on the football field. Like, no, you need to do the work." Um, and he would like hold grudges against me and get really pissed. And I mean, he got his diploma like by the skin of his teeth. And his mom was like, "If it was not for you and the counselor, this child would not have a diploma." But he's now, and it was funny, he took a career survey in my Avid class and was totally offended that it said he should be in fashion design because he's the quarterback. What, fashion designer? And I was like, "Hold up." I was like, "Take a look at your backpack and your jacket and your shoes." And I was like, "You obviously care a lot about how things look." And I said, "So fashion, like every jersey that an athlete puts on, there's a fashion designer who designed that." I said, "All the little swooshes on the Nikes." And I said, "Those are designers that make all of that." Um, and so now he's a grown up. He's like 30 something years old, and he flips houses.
No,
And
science.
and he makes a lot of money. And he also, like, he gives back to the community. He goes into like low income areas and does workshops to teach people how to save for buying property. And um, like, he does all this excellent stuff. And I had him come speak to my fifth graders
No.
a couple years ago. And it was so cute. He brought like all this football stuff. And then he threw this picture up of us at his high school graduation. And Levi's like an infant on my hip. And I was like, I don't even have that picture. You have to send that picture to me. But
No,
it's, not all kids have the same path. And, you can push and pull a kid a lot, but they're going to go when they want to go.
it's true.
Yeah.
What was the most surprising for you when you joined the admin, when you went from teaching to vice principal's office?
How much
If
teachers
anything.
screw up, how much the adults screw up.
Oh, interesting.
Like,
In what regard?
just
Elaborate a little.
how often they fly off the handle. And I mean, it's not like I swore occasionally in front of my kids and, different, always on accident and never like at a kid. Um, but they trusted me. And so like I didn't get told on. No one was going to the principal's office going, Miss Dubinsky said shit today. Like it was um and it was just amazing to me how many of my colleagues um had kids who hated them so much that they would tell on them for every little thing, or just how often they would really screw up a lot. Um, so I was happy like they didn't put me in charge of the science department. They put
Is it
me.
harder to deal with kids, staff, or parents for you?
I mean, I think it depends on which community, but definitely the kids are the easiest no matter where you go. Um, Kids are kids everywhere. Parents, I mean, I have some tough parents now, but what's harder for me personally is when you're in a community where people are very entitled. They don't have a lot of respect for educators. Um, and, that things get litigious when they don't have to be. Those are the things that I find to be the most difficult. And
In more affluent, you said?
usually more
Okay.
affluent. Yeah. Um, and, my whole thing about, being very impeccable with your word choice, like I'm not, I'm not the most skilled in those situations. I'm much better as like being the person that's going to tell you like it is and bring up difficult topics and try and get a parent to open up. Um, that's more my skill is just being really straight with people and being like, look, here's what I see. Am I right? Is this what's going on? And or what am I missing? Um, just to try and like get people to trust that you have their kids' best interest um, in mind and that you want to actually help them. And it's hard. I mean, we call CPS almost every week in my school, and that doesn't build trust with families. And those are people that we desperately need to engage with us. Um, so it's complicated. There's different parts that are difficult depending on where you go.
Interesting. Did you get in trouble for speaking ever, for being honest and upfront today in the that we're in the world of politically correctness, and you have to watch what you say to anybody, anywhere, whether you're in the store, gas station, or in a work environment, or with your friends. Everybody's just on edge, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, at work, I'm very careful now, especially with employees, sharing personal views or even some personal details I'm careful with. I think I was too outspoken in at least one district that I worked in.
Okay.
Um, and I think part of your job as you kind of go in your career is to find supervisors who are a good fit for you, you know. And I think um I think I've learned a lot from supervisors who weren't a good fit and also those who were.
Oh, that's great. And
Yeah.
you're aside from assertiveness, leadership skills, and being you're very kid centric seems like. And I
Mhm.
hear sometimes it's not a good thing. I've heard from other educational professional, and I think it should be a cornerstone of education for teachers to be kid centric. It's all about the kids, not the districts, not the Department of Education. But I'm not a professional. I'm just a parent. What are your take on that? And what are the skills that you need, leadership skills that you need other than being assertive? You're assertive and you're kid centric. What are
I think you have to balance. So I think you have to balance. One of the terms they use right now is being a warm demander, right? So
what's a term?
a warm demander. So you demand a lot from people, but you do it warmly, like with warmth. Um, and so I'm not a gushy person, especially with adults. I can be gushy with kids, but so I'm kind of learning like how to, and I'm also a person that doesn't really need compliments, and is even like embarrassed to receive compliments.
You are.
Yeah, like I don't, and so it's not natural for me to give a lot of compliments. Um, And so I think when you're managing people, that's a muscle you have to build, um, so that you can ask a lot of people is they need to know that you see the good in them and that you can say it and then and it's the same like the teacher to student relationship. Like they can take criticism and feedback and hard work if they know you've seen the good in them. And so it's similar from the principal to teacher. Um, so I think that's I keep working on that because my my tendency is to just be like, no, do this. Come on, next, and because it wouldn't offend me, but there's a lot of people who are really sensitive. So you just have to balance that. And I feel like there was something else to your question that I was gonna answer, but I don't remember.
I don't remember either, but interesting. You said it's is it Lenore? Is it Leah that have hard time with compliments?
I don't know. It was funny. I read a thing on
We all need
Instagram.
compliments. We all need to uplift. I believe we all need to uplift each other. Why is it difficult?
Um, so I think so in terms of like giving them, I really want to give a compliment when I really see somebody do something hard or admirable, novel, you know, I don't want to just say it to say something. Um, and that's what prevents me from giving them. And I think on the receiving end, I feel like it's unless it's something that like I I don't know. I'm intentionally like if I were to build a presentation and give it to my boss and present, and they were to give me positive feedback, I'm comfortable with that. But just in like the everyday stuff, it's hard for me. I don't know why. I don't know why.
If a mom of a football player will come to you, said Ms. Dubinsky, if not for you, my son would not graduate from high school. I find it's a compliment worth doing this job. Is it not?
Yes. Yes, a compliment like that is very like, and
Genuine and authentic compliment that
yeah.
is valid,
Yeah,
and
and I
you're okay with that.
yes, and I think when I can feel like, yeah, that was a hard thing that I did or, that I helped with, it feels it feels fine. I think that sometimes I think I have just a drive to do a lot. And so sometimes what's kind of just baseline for me, if I just get compliments on some of that, I'm like, that, like it's nothing. Like, like, and it's kind of like "Hmm, I don't want to hear that compliment. I don't know why. I don't know why. It's a, I probably should see a psychologist about it.
No, that's just you. If you want live with it or work on it, that's great. I find it's wonderful when people. I mean, I mean, like see a person, well put together in the store, farmers market. Like, I love your style. I mean, one of those people. My husband like nudging me, "Let's go, let's go." I'm like, I just want to. I mean, I truly think want to compliment it, because you never know. Somebody might have a bad day, and I truly think that this lady is very well put together. Somebody had a wonderful, toast at the dinner party or something.
Mhm.
But interesting. And is it different with professional as a mom? Is it different being a mom and complimenting the kids? Do you distinct, Leah mom
Well,
versus Leah's principal?
for sure, becoming a mom really helped me understand the parent perspective. I mean, and also I remember being really intimidated to meet with parents because I was young.
Mm.
Um, and now, and even, I mean, I was 30 when I had Levi, and I was still a lot younger than a lot of the parents, because I was working at a high school. But it just, it's like you suddenly understand why people get so intense about their kid. And it's like suddenly like, oh, yeah, like don't mess with my kid, And so if you think someone's messing with your kid, like you're going to come in hot, like, hi, what the hell are you doing? And so, that was a pretty instant, thing where it was like, suddenly I totally understood what, and it didn't matter that he was a baby and not in school yet. It was just like, very suddenly you understand that perspective. And I think it's really hard to understand that if you don't have kids. I feel like there's shades of it that you can understand, but until you're a parent, it's really hard to know.
What about complimenting? Your baseline is so high that I'm thinking every kid deserves support and compliment regardless.
Oh,
I'm one of those
kids,
moms. Thank you,
kids
Johnny. You did.
I'm all
The
about
Johnny who
complimenting
missed the
them.
ball, but he still was outside, breathing fresh air, eating Cheetos afterwards. We had a great day.
Yeah, no, I with kids it's easy. And I especially now that I'm with little kids and I study our attendance data so much, like just when a kid knows that you noticed that they walked in the gate to school, and I'm like, Mel, you haven't been here for 3 days. I'm so glad you're back. They're like, the principal knows I'm back. It's like they they love it. And they need it so much. You go into the TK classroom, and if you tell one child that you like their drawing or whatever, then all the other 20 are like, oh, look at mine. Look at mine. Don't you like
Wow, that's adorable.
they need that reinforcement. So it's definitely like, it's got to be like part of your reptile brain that you need it. Um, so I don't know why my brain rejects
What's
it.
the yardstick of success? I'm talking personal, professional. Just how did Leah define success in life?
I think in my family life, it's my children's relationship with each other and how they sustain a relationship with me and Dennis. I think that being able to teach them how important family is. I think that's, as a mom, um, and teaching them how to live independently, like
Teach them what?
to how to live independently, that they'll be able to leave and do fine outside of the walls of our house. Um, and at work, I think it's just getting more kids adequately prepared to leave. Right now, there are so many of my kids who leave fifth grade. They cannot read a fifth grade text independently at all. There's just a bunch. And so the more I can bring up the percentage of kids who can, that's that's how I define success.
I just heard somewhere that we California is number 46 from the state. Is that?
It's better. We used to be worse than that. But yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
incredible.
that.
The wealthiest state in Mount.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing the job you do. It's incredible. Any advice you'll give your 20-year-old self?
Oh, my 20-year-old self. Um, save more money.
Take more money.
Yeah, save more money, travel more before you have kids. What else? Hmm. hmm. I think that's it. I wish I had gone to some more places, especially while I was young and didn't care what my
Life is still young,
expectations were.
Life is still young. You have plenty of time, I'm sure.
Yeah. Now I
Any
just don't.
regrets?
Any regrets? Mm, oh man. I dated some stupid people.
Oh,
I wish I wouldn't have given some time to some people in my life, but I was pretty young, so it's okay. Um, what else? I don't know what would have been in my control, but my relationship with my sister, I wish was better. But I think that's it.
how do I unwind after a long day? What's your hobby, or when you have a time to your? Do you have time to yourself?
I'm not good at taking time for myself.
Okay.
Um, I often unwind by getting work done. Really,
So,
like it's a sick thing, but I do like to take walks with the dogs. I like to read, and I have committed fully to reading nothing that has to do with work, just like fun, silly things, or interesting things, but it's nothing that has to do with work. Um, that's something I've been doing for the last couple years. And um, if I can get myself to yoga, that's really good for unwinding. But I have to just get
nice.
myself there.
Nice. Do you believe in that work-life balance is possible?
I do believe it's possible because I have a lot of colleagues who figure it out um, much better than I have so far. Um, it is hard though. It is hard. Our We have a busy family, and so I mean, I flew in from a baseball tournament at 11 o'clock last night, and then I was at work at 7:15 this morning. Um,
Um,
so you have to be disciplined about your time, um, and I think you have to be comfortable knowing like what your priorities are and how you want to spend your time. Um, because there's only 24 hours in every day. Yeah.
what's your current state of mind right now,
Oh, I'm a little
today?
today. I'm a little frazzled today. Um, I haven't been able to be in my office since I came back to work because we're a construction site right
Oh,
now. So it's like there's like a glitter jar in my head of things floating around, needing my attention, and um, but I'm also trying to like remember there's always tomorrow, and not everything can get done uh, today. So,
the last question I ask everybody: what do you find extraordinary in every day?
um, California, I think, is a pretty extraordinary place. Um, Especially when I leave California, I'm always like, man, we live in an amazing place because it's just beautiful. The fact that you can drive a couple hours and get to the beach and drive another couple hours and be in the snow in the mountains um and like on a much tinier level when I try to make time to enjoy it and I go like hiking in the Oakland Hills or whatever, like I love looking at moss and ferns and stuff that grows in the shade and um so I think it'd be really hard to get me to leave California.
Leah, thank you very much. It was a very exciting conversation.
Yeah,
Thank you for
absolutely.
being here.